I just had my first submissive slave. During our vetting, he mentioned he likes to be put under extreme pressure and intense pain. So we proceeded with the contract and all of that. After our first scene, where I broke him through degradation, a little bit of sadism, and punishment, he was overwhelmed with emotions, and I could feel him slipping away to think and process the scenes. I feel overwhelmed too because I have never felt connection with anyone like this, and he lets me do things to him, which pleases me very much. My question is, how do we deal with this downtime and the roller coaster of emotions? We communicate very well, but I'd like to understand what is going on and how to approach this, since I need to also guide him in processing this. Some of the language and things being used here denotes that we're working with someone new to this. And they even said, I just had my first submissive or slave, so I'm not sure if this is the first scene, the first paid scene, the first paying client. I'm not sure, but either way, we're relatively new to this. And so my friend who asked this question, what's essentially going on is when you do a great job in a scene, and it sounds like you did, what's going to happen is a crash, often called sub-drop or crash. And really, it's basically, think of it this way, as high as you go, you have to come back down to earth. So if you are in flow as a dominant, if you're in transient hypofrontality as a submissive, if you are in the zone, if you are in subspace, if you're in dom space, and that sub-arousal is being reached, kink arousal is being reached, sexual arousal is being reached, all those boxes are being checked, it is going to require some emotional and physical processing after, but it's not necessarily a negative thing. And I feel like because our friend is a little new here, we're kind of looking at this as a fear or an anxious thing, kind of like, how do I solve this? What do I do? How do I navigate this? Let me just start by saying the fact that there is a drop or is a crash is proof that play was really good. And so I would just say start there and go, okay, you did good. You didn't do anything wrong. This is absolutely perfectly normal. With that being said, I have a few possibilities of things because you said, how do we deal with this downtime and the roller coaster of emotions? We communicate very well, but I'd like to understand what is going on and how to approach it. And here's the thing, what's going on and how to approach it. We need to figure out what is going on in order to identify how to approach it. I can't just throw out approaches for you. That's going to be determined by you. But what I can do for you is illustrate some possibilities, some different paths, some different options, some different thoughts and feelings that the submissive might be going through so that you can determine what approach needs to be taken. Where I want to kind of start with this paradigm is sub-drop equals arousal plus exhaustion. Okay? Think of it that way. Sub-drop equals arousal plus exhaustion, okay? And it's like we're all saying, you can't fall from no height. So if there was no arousal being hit, the crash is not going to happen. The fact that there is a crash, the fact that there is a drop is proof that arousal points were hit and they were taken to the level that physical, mental, emotional exhaustion also came into play. Does that make sense? So for all of you new doms that may feel intimidated or overwhelmed by that, it's actually a sign that good things happen, that the submissive had a good experience. Now, you can also be triggered in a scene and crash from that, but that's not what we're talking about here. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. Everything in this is very, very positive. It went very, very well. And because it went very, very well, now we need some emotional processing time. 4 options that I want to roll out to you. If sub-drop is arousal plus exhaustion, then it could be sub-arousal that the submissive is experiencing, right? Sub-arousal plus overwhelm, positive or negative, okay? In this case, it sounds like it could be positive overwhelm. It could be, oh my gosh, this dominant just checked all the boxes. I trusted her. I let her do things to me. It was an amazing experience. Oh my gosh, is this too good to be true? All of that. It could be. I am overwhelmed by this, but in a very, very positive way. I'm overwhelmed with all of these emotions because it went so well. I'm overwhelmed with all these thoughts because I keep thinking about it and ruminating about it and daydreaming about it. It could be that the submissive is positively overwhelmed, and that's a good thing, but it still is going to require processing time. So that's option number one. It could be subarousal plus overwhelm. It could be subarousal plus confusion. For those who struggle with a lot of shame or religious conditioning, vanilla conditioning, things like that, confusion can be a big emotion, especially if someone's new to the lifestyle, where you were talked down to, you were degraded, you were humiliated, you were beat, and all of the programming says, this is bad, this is wrong, this is dirty, this is sick, this is twisted. But yet, oh my gosh, I found release, I found connection, I was able to experience just freedom like I haven't felt before, whatever it is. I feel aroused, I feel connected to this person, whatever. And we have to kind of look at both and go, I'm feeling both at the same time. That can be very confusing, especially to someone who's a new player. It can be very confusing, like, oh my gosh, should I be feeling this way? Is this coming from a good place? Is it coming from an unhealthy place? We kind of touched on that last week when Silver was asking about what was the actual question? About impact play, and does it correlate to childhood trauma with her abusive father? So if you missed that discussion, go back and watch the last Q&A, because we definitely touched on that. So that could be another option that's happening here. It could be just confusion where they're ruminating, they're in their head, and they're over analyzing it. Another option could be, and it's similar, but shame and overthinking. Okay, so I kind of already touched on this in this last point, but shame and overthinking, like, is this coming from a healthy place? Am I sick, twisted, and demented because I like this? What does this say about me that I like this? What does this say about my personality? What does it say about what I bring into the world? Da, 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 da. You can drive yourself crazy in shame spirals and overthinking. So that could be another option that's taking place right now. And then, like I mentioned briefly in the first point with the overwhelmed, it could be subarousal plus bliss. Straight up just bliss. Like, this is too good to be true. I didn't think I'd find a dominant that I connected so well with. I didn't think I'd find play that was so compatible. I didn't think I'd feel so safe. I didn't think I'd feel so free. This is too good to be true. I'm blissed out. This is too good to be true. So I see all of those as possible options here that the submissive might be experiencing after such an intense and positive scene. So really, if it's overwhelm, confusion, overthinking, because we have bliss and then we have kind of these negative ones. So if it's overwhelm, confusion, or overthinking, then I would say that you as the dominant need to just encourage conversation and be there to reassure. Be there to reassure. You're not here to change paradigms. That's therapists can help with that. You're not necessarily here to change paradigms, but you can go, it's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to feel a little confused, and be with them and hold that space for them. I would say that you really need to increase in this time. If you haven't already had, I mean, I know it's after the C now, so it's kind of redundant to say aftercare, but at least a debrief at this point. If you haven't been able to debrief and actually ask the submissive, how are you feeling? From the outsider's perspective, I'm seeing maybe some overwhelm, or like you need to take space. Can you tell me what's going on in your inner world? So a debrief would be incredibly, incredibly helpful for both of you, the submissive to be able to verbally process and you to gather more data. So I would highly encourage you, always, 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 when the moment's right, after aftercare, following aftercare, when the moment's right, have a debrief. And sometimes it's not appropriate to have a debrief 5 minutes after the scene. Sometimes it's not appropriate to have the debrief the same night. Sometimes it's not appropriate to have the debrief for a day or two. But whenever it is appropriate, whenever you both can be present and grounded and mindful enough to have that discussion, I think it would help both of you, again, to verbally process from the bottom side and for you as the top to gather data here. I also think in this season where the sub is crashing, is dropping, is processing all of these yummy, juicy things, lots of check-ins, like more than normal, okay? Because we want to make sure that emotional, mental well-being is top priority here. So lots of check-ins just so that the submissive doesn't feel alone. Don't feel like you have to have a degree in psychology or psychiatry. Don't feel like you have to have all the right answers. Don't feel like you have to know everything perfect to say. But if that submissive knows that you're on the end of that, on the end of the phone, on the other line, just a phone call away, just a text away, going, I'm here, you're not alone. If you need to call, call. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to process, process. I'm here. I'm here. You're not alone. I'm guiding you through the drop. That's essentially what you're communicating to the submissive. I led you through the scene. Now I'm guiding you through the drop. Okay? You might be crashing, but you're not crashing alone. You're crashing into my hands, is essentially the message that you want to give. You might be falling, but you're going to fall into my hands. You might be crashing, but you're going to crash into me. That's essentially what we want to communicate to the submissive during this this short window. Okay? Think of it like recovery. You are. Safe space. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A safe space to find your footing again, kind of get out of the heavens, out of the clouds, and come back down to earth and actually be mindful about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you need, all of that. I think another one here, again, regardless of the submissive's love language, is increased quality time. However that works for your dynamic, your relationship. I know that many of you are distant, whether it's different countries, different time zones, whatever. So however that works for you, but yeah, I would highly advise you to increase quality time during this processing moment because, again, the submissive is going to need to feel held. The more present you can be, the more time you can spend with them, that submissive is going to feel like I'm not alone. And I feel held and I feel safe and I feel comfortable. And that is the key. We can't process anything. We can't process emotion. We can't sit with our emotion and process them unless we feel safe to do so. I mean, think about it. If you are getting chased by a bear, you're going to be in survival mode. You're not going to be in present, mindful, I'm going to feel my feelings mode. You are in survival. I have to fucking get away from the bear. And so we have to get out of that survival state and into present in the moment. Really, really, truly. I mean, attention and presence and self-awareness is so, so key. It's so key. So quality time, reassurance is another one, okay? So verbal communication of reassurance. You did great in that scene. I'm so proud of you. You're so strong. All of those things where you are giving reassurance. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for you. Statements like that. Communicate those to the submissive as often as possible. So increase check-ins, communication, quality time, and reassurance, because 4 things could be happening: submissive arousal versus submissive arousal and overwhelm, submissive arousal and confusion, submissive arousal and shame and overthinking, and submissive arousal and bliss. So if you can determine kind of what's going on while you communicate with your submissive as you have a debrief, then you can kind of pick the appropriate route to take.